Well, already you're really fun. This is amazing. Shannon, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's so awesome to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So like your platform, your work is so like diverse, but it's also the very focused, very empowering, I would say. But I think instead of me trying to butcher, trying to describe what I found about you, I think the best thing is for all of us listening is, what is it that you do? Like, and how did you come to this path that you're on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Essentially, the mission and the work and my purpose is all about helping people awaken and align to their true self. And it's all about authentic living because I believe that's why we're here. But there's lots of paths to that. There's the path through joy, through lifting our vibration. There's the path of understanding our traumas and the depression and the sadness that we go through and those darker kind of experiences. And then there's also living your purpose and living it with intent and being focused in the world so you can be of higher service for others. So this looks like lots of different avenues: books, videos, blogs, coaching, retreats. And I came to this work in my own very personal way by kind of going on a path that was so far off of the authentic path. I was several years ago. This actually is my 10-year anniversary, a decade ago. It's like literally,
Congratulations.
yeah, a decade ago, about a month ago, was kind of the biggest, darkest, they call it the dark night of the soul, if you will. I was diagnosed with clinical depression and I was working in advertising, cleaning the corporate ladder. I was in a very, very popular advertising agency that worked with celebrities, flying all around the world on these fancy accounts. And it looked glamorous. I was dating a man who wanted to marry me, and just like looking at it, all the boxes were checked, right? Society, what you think you should get. And we hear stories like this all the time. But when I went to the doctor and I was diagnosed with depression, that was a turning point for me, because I came home that night and I cried on the bathroom floor like so many nights before. And at the time, I was suffering silently from eating disorders, trying so hard to control my world that felt out of control. I was also really addicted to painkillers and drugs. And I was diagnosed with extreme anxiety as well. So it was just very kind of a dark, deep, toxic way just to survive. I actually thought everyone fell asleep at night crying. I thought that was what it meant to be human, and come to realize that there is a better way, because I came home that night, cried, and for the first time I did a full surrender. That was a turning point for me, because that is what really opened and cracked me open on a spiritual journey. And I felt a presence greater than me. I will always remember that presence. It was divine. It felt like angels. It felt like my higher self. It was the universe wrapping its hands around me and saying, it's going to be okay. And the message I got was, follow your heart. And we hear this all the time, right? On those cute little buzz phrases, follow your heart. But it meant something this time, because I realized I didn't even know what my heart wanted, but I made a commitment that day that every day for the rest of my life, I will follow my heart. And that has led to the most extraordinary life. I am so fulfilled. I am living my purpose. I am creative. I am of service. And it's a true journey when you can tap into that. And so that's kind of the highlighted version of from there to here.
That's amazing. Were you spirit, like, maybe not spiritual? Were you religious or had any sort of any religious spiritual upbringing that as a part of that journey, or was it like this sort of, you know, kind of, vague upbringing that led to a more purposeful spiritual connection?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I grew up in a household that was Christian and we were Lutheran, but when I was young, my mom started to become more spiritual. So I was introduced to people like Wayne Dyer and at the time Doreen Virtue and a lot of Hay House authors, and started to get in touch with like channelers or what crystals meant, probably when I was in junior high. But I always just thought, yeah, that's my mom and it's cool, it works for her. But I was introduced to it. So it was kind of like this background for me. I wasn't really religious. I've always believed in the universe and God and this power greater than us, but it was time for me to really get to know it. And I think that was the turning point for me. It was about really learning how to embody that instead of just having it be a concept kind of outside of.
Yeah, no, I really get that actually. Part of the reason why I asked too is that there's a lot of people I find that, if they're raised in a specific modality or spiritual or religious principle or teaching, there's like this phase through life that we often like kind of disconnect from it, because it's just like it is that, yeah, I mean, I've taught it, but it doesn't really mean much. And then you kind of go through, your journey, your dark night of the soul, your disconnection. Some people go and they, travel the world and this and that, or just, go very atheist or agnostic. But then they'll all just kind of, oftentimes you'll see like that they'll kind of come around in like a full circle, and all of that stuff that they were introduced to now like clicks into place, and it suddenly
Yeah.
means something so much more.
It's so interesting too, because I truly believe we learn the way on the way. And so every step along the way, it's like these pieces and, these little crumbs that kind of build into the bigger picture. And that's why a lot of my work, like my books, Adventures for Your Soul, The Self-Love Experiment, Joy Seeker, it's all about the journey and being in the process instead of trying to get to that destination. And that was a shift that I had to make. And I think a lot of us really suffer with trying so hard to get there. We hire the coach or listen to the podcast for that fix, but just absorbing the information in these pieces is part of what a real fulfilled life is, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you did have your spiritual awakening and found that fulfillment, I'm very curious then, like what, is it sort of a more of a universal spirituality, or do you draw upon like a lot of different sources?
Yeah, I actually do. So interesting enough, you mentioned travel, and travel has been a huge inspiration for me because I left corporate and I traveled and I became a travel writer before I started writing books. And then I started my blog, and traveling opened up a whole new world of seeing how other religions were practiced, seeing how people experienced universal love. And I realized that there is profoundness in all of it. And for my particular beliefs, it all comes back to love. I believe it's a loving universe, and it's really about this essence. And so for me, tying into, I will share Buddhist techniques. I practiced Buddhism for a while. I will share, the Tao hands. There's so many different kind of layers. But for me, it ultimately comes back to being of service to the light. And really what that means is being in love, working to raise your vibration and connecting with the universal energy of love. Some say God, some say source energy, some say divine. To me, I don't think it's as important as what it's called is how it makes you feel. And that's kind of where I live.
Wow. Yeah, that's really sacred. I remember specifically on like I was browsing your website, and there was a video that you were making, and you were like, "Hey, I forget the place. You were like on a pier with all this water all around you and everything." And it seemed like you had kind of this kind of traveling lifestyle as a part of your work, which it's just the best life, I have to say. I'm really inspired by that. I used to do more traveling before, and now I'm a little bit more in the same place a lot. But
Yeah.
it's really, I mean, the whole traveling, just being able to see and experience so much and then share what you're finding, it must be just so valuable, especially for all of your, your close followers.
I think it's been one of the most profound gifts that I saw in my life, kind of an ideal version, and it was being location independent. And I saw myself working and living and traveling. And I spent multiple times over the past several years where the longest was a 9-month period where I was in other countries. And the amount of growth that I experience is so, I think I love it so much. I had a friend describe it to me. She love it so much because it's like warp speed personal growth. You're forced into situations, you're experiencing new cultures. And one of my greatest values is growth. Lo and behold, I'm a personal development author, so it works out well. But I think more importantly, it's about reflecting on that. And then because you grow so much as a person, you get to see that we are really all so similar. For me, it's about the humanity. It's not just going to that great waterfall or trying that fancy food. It's really about the people and connecting with all people. They're some of the most profound experiences in my life, even when we didn't speak the same language. I remember I was in Russia. I was invited into a Russian home, and I felt a little bit scared because of all these notions of like, well, Russia is. But it was the most beautiful experience because we didn't speak the same language, but we were able to communicate through our eyes, and we shared a meal, and we were able to like really just be there with each other. And another time when I was in Mexico, I was lost. It was so terrifying. I had just gotten off this really long flight, And it's just like grace in action when you see these things, like these earth angels come in. This woman saw me crying on the side of the street, and she comes over and she helped me up. I speak poquito español, but not enough to understand what she was trying to tell me. Just a little bit of Spanish. I showed her my map, and the taxi driver dropped me off in the wrong neighborhood. And she grabbed her keys, a water bottle because it was hot, and she drove me across town. And we didn't speak the language. She just looked in the rearview mirror and smiled at me the whole time. And I tried to offer money. She said, no, no, no. She just said, God bless you. Things like that. You know, that's what humanity is. That's what the purpose is. And that just gives me this kind of ignition, like reinvigoration for life. And so it's about the people, really.
Oh my God. That's really precious and sacred. Beautiful to hear, especially like I've had a lot of guests on the show, even in the last few weeks. And, we're doing a video series about conspiracy theories and stuff. So it's not uncommon to go down the rabbit hole and be in
Yeah.
like oh my gosh, the whole, this, top level kind of controlling thing. But like what you're bringing forth is like the mother goddess from the ground up, like this really, the potent connection that we all share, and how when we
Mhm.
just live in that connection, amazing things can happen. So I thank you for
Yes.
speaking to that. That's just
Yes.
inspiring and
I
lighting
love
my
what you
heart.
said though. Yeah, it's about that genuine connection and that authenticity. And I truly believe on that topic of what you just brought up, that is the way we get through this too. We connect to our humanity and our connection with each other. And that's how we solve all those other problems that
Mm,
may feel fearful or maybe too big to conceptualize. It is about us coming together. We need each other, you know?
we do. And so, how has your work, if you spent a lot of time traveling, and then of course 2020 hit and we all kind of went into lockdown, how has your work changed this year? And are you still able to reach people at this level that you have before?
You know, I'm so glad you asked that because this has been such a trying year, I think, for so many people, but it's been probably the most profound growth year for anyone and everyone if they're truly on this path. And a big part of my life, a huge chunk was speaking. And this was going to be the biggest speaking year. I had 2, 3 gigs lined up every month in different countries. It was like what I've been working towards my whole career. So
Wow.
in March, when I started to see them all drop, and then be rescheduled, and then all of the ones that were rescheduled drop again, I went into a place of having to practice everything that I teach, but more importantly, embody it on every level. And so I actually have spent this entire year in inner peace because those are the projects I'm working on. I have an oracle card deck that comes out next year and a new book with Sounds True. And it's all about unshakable inner peace. And so how amazing that I'm writing about it during the most turbulent time out in the world, because the ultimate is we can look out into the world and this crazy earth and see what's going on out there, but ultimately none of it has any matter unless you're connected inside. Our inner world creates our outside world. And so I've had the opportunity to really live that now and recognize that everything that is showing up is also co-created by us, which is new for me. So I've been looking at how I co-created this experience of not traveling, which is my number one passion in the world. There's been a lot of times, the weeks on my calendar when I see I was supposed to be leading that retreat where I would be sad and depressed and grieving, but then realizing these are human emotions that are so raw and rich, and to feel them is part of what living a fulfilled life is, and really what living a peaceful life is. And so I live now more in a place of being present than I ever have. I'm definitely allowing more of the spirituality out because I can't hide it anymore. Like, it's who I am. I used to be afraid to mention crystals or the universe even. Now I'm like, nope, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's just like unapologetic now about being who we truly are. And I think that's the gift all of us have been giving in 2020. In my coaching practice, I've seen so many people like step into their authenticity because it's kind of like being faced with what's been happening. It has brought up a lot of fears for people, whether it's a fear of death or a fear of control or a fear of losing family. We're being forced as humanity to rise into our next evolution, really, but what it means is come face to face with that so you can see that we can exist past that. And so my fears no longer stop me. I no longer have any fears that block me.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
amazing. And congratulations also on riding the wave of change, because there is that, discordant chaos that's kind of hitting everyone right now. And you know, it almost looks sometimes like it's purposeful. I don't know, but like, you know, there's just so many different voices and perspectives and feelings that everyone is just sharing about this whole year and everything that's, you know, whether it's safe to be around other people and everything like that. And to just kind of take all of that from your perspective and just go, yeah, peace
Yes.
is
Yes. Yeah.
amazing.
And
Amazing.
what's really great is I have very clear beliefs on all of it, but those beliefs don't define. Our beliefs will create our reality. And I'm choosing to align with the beliefs that really help me align with love. And when you're truly connected to love, whether it's the universal love or the religious focus that you have, you are at peace. And I think that that's ultimately what it's about, is tapping into this true power, because nothing outside of us is going to hurt us. By giving it more attention and more power, it will. And I've gone down that rabbit hole, and I've started to kind of think about the worst case scenarios, and I had to face that in my mind and in my reality. What would happen if that worst case happened? But guess what? Even if that worst case thing happens, we're all going to be okay, because we're eternal beings. And I got to that place, and that's where the peace hit. I was like, I started to take the approach that Earth is kind of like this big play, and everyone's playing their part. And what part do I want to play? And I think that that was the radical shift for me that happened this year, because we can hook into other people. Like sometimes you watch movies and you get very invested in the characters. And that's what we can do, whether we hook into politics, whether we hook into different countries and what they're doing, or we can choose to be the hero of our own story. And what does that look like? So everything's more intentional now. I think that's the opportunity for all of us, really.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. That's a very similar lesson that I've been receiving, is just like, it's you have to be the commander of your field. But when you're in, and the environment plays a factor, like when your beliefs and your environment and all of these, factors are all kind of swirling about together, creating this kind of chaotic, discordant life. And then people, bad things happen and people go, wow, that's this person's fault. And you don't see like this kind of that it's really this field that you're emanating, or lack of emanating if you haven't put the time into to nurture it. But the more that you do, the more that you breathe into your light body, or breathe into your, your energy field, you get your reality in order. You find yourself in an environment that is resonant to the path that you want to be on. Things just naturally shift and naturally change all around you in beautiful and profound ways.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most awesome parts of it, because once you start living in that space, you want to choose that more, because things come to you. It's almost like, Abraham and Esther Hicks talk about the vortex, like you are in the vortex and things come to you and they align with you. And it's a very joyful, peaceful place to be, versus we have a choice. I mean, bottom line, and moving into 2021, we really have a choice. And that's, do we want to choose fear and live in fear? Or are we going to choose the path of love, of light? And are we going to choose the path of being of service to others, or being of service to self? That's really what we're looking at here.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think it's going to take for that message to really find its way into everyone's hearts, right? While there's so much chaos and everything like that, like, do you see this as being just the natural progression of where we're going? Is that it's one by one, little by little, like everyone just starts to realize love?
In a great, grand, beautiful world, yes. But I think that ultimately, one of the chapters in my next book, in Unshakable Inner Peace, is everyone is on their own journey. And this has been a very profound experience for me. I've done plant medicine, and that has been very spiritual for me. And when I was in a plant medicine ceremony, it was ayahuasca, I remember having this profound moment where I was experiencing kind of what I was going through. It was very visceral. And I looked out and I saw 30 other people having their own complete experience. One person was dancing, one was crying, one was literally sleeping. And that's when it became such a metaphor for life. Yeah. Every single one of us are going through what Earth is presenting to us this year, and we're living through it. All of us collectively, yet we are all our own little universe, having our own specific focus. And when I tapped into that, everything changed for me, because I realized we all have life soul lessons that we need to learn. This is why you grow up in the household and your sibling has a completely different perspective, right? We have past life things that kind of play into this life if you're, associated with that. Every choice we make is part of our own perspective. So the prayer that I've been saying outwardly daily is please allow, and there's a couple, but the main one is that everyone raises into the next vibration of their higher truth, whatever that looks like for them. So if you look at every collective being on earth raising up just a little bit, there are people up here who are masters and, like the Buddhas. There are people who maybe this is their first life and they don't even know what spirituality is or whatever. All of us together collectively can raise. And so my point with all this is that there's no one way to do it, except for there are people who can show others what's possible. And I have refused to participate in the drama of the world this year, although I have found myself in some heated arguments and I catch myself and return back to, okay, let's get back to, I don't need to convince them, right? We all do that. But if we all just stand in our truth, and our truth is love, our truth is not fear. It's been given to us and it's been assigned to us, but we are out of that and raising out of that 3D matrix. And the more we can align with our truth, which is why I say I help people awaken and align to their true power, which is the love within, then we're all working together to do our part. So there's a lot of ways to do that. Just like someone who's in a 12-step, like someone who's an alcoholic, they may find healing through a 12-step program or through God or through a family member. Everyone's path to healing and ascension is different. But as long as we're committed to growth, then I think we got it.
So well said. So well said. And I'm really happy you brought up the ayahuasca experience as well. I kind of wanted to ask you about it. It's very synchronistic. I'm going to go to Rhythmia very soon to go and have another experience. Literally, it's next week. Is
oh my God, this is so perfect timing. So you've already been though, right?
I've been 8 times.
8 times to Rhythmia?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm like,
but I know we're already there. I want to ask, is that where you did the ayahuasca as well?
Yeah, it is. And it's such a great, safe place to do it. And I fully love them there. And I've been there 3 times. It's a very special experience.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. That's so, isn't it so special though? It's so
it's a lot, right?
Words. Yeah.
It's a lot in the sense that each time it meets you where you're at. And I think that the very first time I did ayahuasca and plant medicine, if you will, I was so amazed at how profound the healing and wisdom was. It is medicine. It is a healing tool. And I think sometimes people, think of other things like psychedelics as just an escape. And so it changed my whole world of psychedelics, because in college, I was just trying to escape. I used to be a drug addict with some hardcore drugs. And I have a whole new respect. And I think psychedelics have a huge space in our mental health and our wellness, anything. So if you take that same kind of conscious focus on what you bring to a plant medicine ceremony with shamans with an intention, and you were to do that with perhaps mushrooms or other experiences, it is radically life-changing, because these are tools that can help our souls heal and grow and see the truth of everything. So it's been a great, I think for me, the biggest thing is what happens after you leave the experience, the integration. Yeah. And so how are you embodying what you learn in your life, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a lesson that applies to all aspects of spirituality, because it seems like the natural wave of life is, we go through these experiences of profound realization, and then it's put to the test of can you live through it? And sometimes things get difficult, and we have to remember those core values and lessons and truths that elevated us, and use them to navigate the density, which will help us get to an even higher plateau, right? There's these natural currents, and that's what even Rhythmia, I mean, they do an amazing job of even at the end having all right, listen, this week, this was only half of the work.
Right.
When you go back, that's the next stage of bringing this into your life and making use of it. So I'm really happy that you spoke to that.
I love that you're going back. Do you have an intention that you can share, or your focus this time is?
There's been
after 2020 and everything, right?
There's been a few that, I mean, yeah, I'm very due for a trip, I have to say. Well, it's if I'm just being completely honest, and I always try to be, or it's just embody my truth, is that I have a little bit let myself run myself ragged these past couple months, and even often throughout this year, of just working so much. And maybe even this is partially because I moved into a place where I'm very alone and isolated from a lot of people. I don't really know anybody in my environment, and I'm in a very small town away from everyone. But also, this year has been a year of so much growth for Spirit Science, Spirit Studios. At the start of this year, we were posting maybe one video every couple weeks or a month or two. Like, there was no consistency. And very quickly, it became 1, 2, 3, 4 videos a week consistently, right? Every single. But in order to carry that, and in order to work with the team and make sure that we were getting things out on time, and then also like launching and running our mystery school and having courses and workshops and gatherings and events, it became so much that my health kind of declined. And I have to say, I did a poor job of maintaining my balance and my health in certain, at least during certain periods, because I would just be on the computer way too much, not enough going for walks, not enough exercise, not enough relaxing, or sleep even has been a big one. So I haven't formulated the intention into like a single sentence, but I'm kind of looking for that. I mean, the medicine knows exactly what I need. Like sometimes you go in with an intention and the medicine's like, that's a silly intention. This is better for you. You're like,
and by the way, this will get answered when you figure out this. And what's so special, I love what you're saying, because it's about being honest with where we are. But do you find that, like, I find ayahuasca really picks up right where you left off, no matter how long it is.
Definitely.
It's profound. And that's when I was like, this is so beautiful. This is what Earth is really about, or the opportunity, spirituality, like the medicine available to us, and so much respect for shamans and spiritual teachers. So
yeah. So I mean, I guess in the closure is that my feeling and intention is kind of, I want to bring that energy of overworking myself to a closure forever, and just be maybe empower myself, or get the support I need to be able to go into the next year with a really high vibration, really more balanced in my own health, but also maintain that. Like, that's the thing, like for the studio to maintain our level of quality and output at like the next level, like that's what I need. And
that's
so
beautiful. Yeah.
Something like that, I guess.
I love that you're going again. I'm so happy for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, do you have like a next trip planned
I
out?
want to get one. I just thought with COVID, everything is just like, well, so I kind of stopped. But yes, I am hoping. I actually, right before all that happened, I was kind of planning it. And then, so say hi to Jerry and everyone for me.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll put in a good word. We need to get you out
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah.
I'll be in there, and then we'll share our insights after.
That would be really fun. Well, I mean, because they went, they were shut down for the whole year, and it was just in the last like 4 weeks or so, that like last month, starting in November, I think, that they reopened, and they've got amazing protocols of just like, in order to get people there. And you don't have to be in ceremony with a mask. You don't have to be wearing a mask when you're walking around. It is like a contained space, but it's a safe space. And I really commend them for going above and beyond with the circumstances of the world.
I think that's really important too. And I find that people in the spiritual community, there is more of a understanding of a greater perspective of everything that's kind of happening. And so I like that you're talking about not wearing a mask, because I've often thought about the highest spiritual beings, if they walked on the earth, what they would do. And I just keep coming back to love, like Buddha and Jesus, or whoever, Kuan Yin. It would be about, because the mask, there's not to get into it on a deep level, because I feel like that's going to pass. But when you look at it for what it is and what it brings up in you, I think that not just you, but anyone listening, it's ultimately a deeper spiritual practice about aligning with your truth. And what is your truth? And are you going to listen to the outside world, or are you going to trust your true intuition and love? And I think that's kind of important. And I notice people in the spiritual community are getting a lot of pushback from people with their belief of, you don't need a mask if you're meditating, or, if you're outside and stuff like that. So I commend Rhythmia for being respectful in that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and knowing the truth.
I would be curious. Yeah. I mean, because we did it's very fresh in my mind. Like the Great Reset episode of our conspiracy series is like,
I will go listen to it.
there's a lot
after.
of, I mean, there's a lot we could get into. We won't have to necessarily do that. But my mentality so far, and I've heard from a few different sources of like, some friends of mine, even people on my team are like, yeah, I don't wear a mask unless someone explicitly comes up and tells me to put one on, and then I'll respect the request and I'll do that, right? And for me, my mentality so far, and I'm like, is this the highest spiritual? This is a great question of like, what would Jesus do? What would Kuan Yin
Totally.
do? Right?
Yeah.
My thinking has been like, if I'm using your establishment, I'm thinking a grocery store, because that's literally the only place I will go into lately.
Yeah.
If I'm going into a grocery store and it says mandatory masks on the door, then my thinking is, well, because I'm using your establishment, I'm going to respect the rules of your space that you've created, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll just put on a mask while I'm in the store and then I'll go. And that's kind of been my thinking. But also,
Mm-hmm.
like, if I have someone come to my space, like I have someone who's dropping off firewood later today, you're in my environment. I don't have a sign that says mandatory masks. Please don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Unless you really
Yeah.
want to. And it's kind
Yeah.
of like the space that we're creating. Now I know that there's probably a bigger picture of like the global collective space and everything, but that's been my approach so far.
I
But
love what you're saying. I'm with you on that. That's been my approach too. But I have struggled back and forth because I think I want to stay true to myself and what I know to be true in my heart about what's
yeah,
really kind of happening on a collective level. And then also the respect, right? But we all have to be where we are and meet ourselves where we're at. And so it's a great healing opportunity. And I think coronavirus often, because yes, it's been a turbulent year, but look at the amount of massive growth we've all had, whether it's in our business, whether it's in our psyche, whether it's in just our relationships with family. We learn more about ourselves. We're all going to get through this. It's going to be, I just keep focusing on the other side of the massive growth that is happening for all of us. It's a beautiful experience. So
it's definitely a big change. Like
yeah.
it, I mean, and as much as there is that Great Reset kind of control side of things, I do feel like there's maybe a bit of also this attachment to how things used to be, and wanting things to go back, but knowing that they won't. And also like looking at how discordant society used to be. It's like, that wasn't perfect. Like
Totally.
if we can collectively use this opportunity to make things a bit better, yeah, okay, there's going to be draconian influences, but let's also bring in that more connection and awakening energy to make something better than we had before, because I don't think we want to go back to the way that things were, because it wasn't a perfect system.
It wasn't. And I think that there is another side to all of that manipulation and the control, draconian kind of measures that are coming down full force in the way that we hear the reset, and it feels like control, it feels like kind of propaganda sometimes, but I feel that there's a spiritual side to the reset too, which is love, harmony. We are literally raising our vibration ourselves, but Earth herself is moving into 5D consciousness. And when you're moving into such a high vibration, like community, oneness, again, service to each other is the way of the future for humanity. I believe it with every fiber of my body. I think all of us as light workers and teachers and healers and people on this path, we hold steady on the focus, because I went through that process of focusing on all the dark agendas, and then that keeps you in the dark, right? So it's good to know it's there. That's fine. It is there. But then what am I going to do about it? How do I want to show up in the world to move past that or help us serve in a great way? And I believe that it's just like anything. You need the dark to have the light. So I have a new respect for it too, because I truly believe God's love is in everything. And so for us to judge the dark or feel like it's absolutely horrific and going to kill us, that's just our fear playing out. If we can bring more light down, then that's how we transcend it. That's where I'm at now. And it's been helping.
No, I appreciate that perspective a lot too. Like we, even in just as like maybe like a mutual mirror reflection here too, is our finale of the conspiracy theory of everything, which hasn't aired yet at the time of this recording, but it might be by the time that this podcast goes out, is called it probably just gonna be called Ascension. I'm not really sure. We might add a few words, but it's basically like the entire big conspiracy of all the darkness and everything. It's sort of like that all gets shattered when we elevate to this next paradigm of our existence and
That's
embody
exactly
that
it.
true light of our souls, and that's
Yes.
like the big reveal is the finale. So a lot of people, they get mad throughout the whole thing. Oh, spirit science, you've gone all dark. Where are you going with this? And it's like, just wait, like,
Just
just
hold
we're
on.
getting to that. We're getting to it. There's a
It's
special thing
so
at the end.
cool. I love that. And yes, ascension is truly the path we're all on. And I think that's why if we hold the intention that if everyone rises into their next awakened conscious level, whatever that may be, then we're all ascending at the purpose and path we're aligned to. Because each one of us does have a purpose, right? Each one of us, and it's not to do more videos or write books, it's to kind of arrive more into the light, to allow yourself to show more love, receive love. And we do that so I do a lot of work around finding your life purpose, because I was in such a place where I didn't feel like I had my purpose. But I've come to realize that all of what I do feels like so much joy because I'm bringing so much love to it. So the purpose is to allow yourself to give more love, be love, receive love. And in that experience, it turns into books or it turns into podcasts, right? And so when you do what you love, you're in this place of joy. And in that place, you cannot have fear. So this whole year I've committed to joy. I've committed to being in my purpose. And you too, even though it turned into overworking, look at what it's turned into. Look at how much it's grown and look at how you get to end the year at Rhythmia. And it's like when we dedicate our life to purpose, it's really a beautiful ricochet effect where we help uplift everyone around us. I know that was a tangent, but for some reason I wanted to share that.
No, it's really special. And it's synchronistically, as we start talking about the light and ascension, I don't know if you've noticed, but on your camera,
I know.
the sun is just coming in, cascading rainbows on you.
It's
And
perfect timing.
it's completely perfect. Like, yeah, like don't cover it up. No.
Light, yes.
On the subject of ascension, though, actually, just going further there, I want to ask you, like, what is your perspective on what ascension means? Because there's so many different angles. Like, is it our physical body going up? Is it our consciousness expanding? Is it, what does 5D mean? It means something different to so many different people. I'd be very curious about your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think I've had it explained to me in a really powerful way, because I don't think it's any better than, less than. It's just a raising of your vibration. And that translates to, yes, it turns into a physical manifestation of wanting to take better care of yourself, or waking up to the energies and the attunement of the food you put in your body. But the way that it was described is like a spiral, right? So this is the bottom of the spiral, and everything's connected. So, but it gets smaller, like almost like one of those pyramids that you've seen, or, like a triangle. So up here is still connected to down here, but we're ascending upward into a higher vibration of ourselves. And so I think like the beautiful posters behind you, like that feels like ascension to me. So it's like rising up, you got it, right? So to me, I don't think there's any just one term, but what it ultimately means is raising into a higher vibration of yourself. So we are obviously, as you know, and everyone listening, we're spiritual beings having this human experience. So it's getting back to the spiritual side of us and bringing that in more, because we have such beautiful power, such beautiful awarenesses, such beautiful gifts that we've not been able to access because we've been in such a low dimension and such a vibration of the collective of what fear, Earth was cast over this dark shadow for so many years, this 3D vibration. So when you're talking 5D vibration, it's 5D consciousness. And it's not a physical space, it's just a raising of your awareness to be this is why some people could probably, some people have more psychic awareness or can channel entities, or some people see aliens or whatever it may be. It's just because their vibration is a match. And I think about it think about relationships, right? Sometimes there's been times in my life where I've attracted very dramatic, toxic relationships because that's the space I was in. I didn't love myself. I was addicted to drugs. And then a place in the type of people I attract in my life now, it's a different vibration, because law of the universe is law of attraction. You're raising your vibration, you're able to raise what matches to you. So that's kind of how I see it.
Wow. Yeah.
How do you see it?
Ascension. Well, so this is funny. It's funny that you brought up the cards behind me, because these are Patch Tarot deck cards, and they're specifically like the Ascension cards. So it
oh my God, that's amazing. Yes.
This one specifically, I don't know if I can kind of have to look different.
I love that you made your cards giant.
Yeah, they're tapestries. People can order any tapestry of any card that they want to and hang them up.
Brilliant.
So the this is the Aeon card, and it shows like the Earth kind of going through its shift. And so we have the Merkaba around the planet, and then people starting to ascend, but the bottom of the planet's on fire because of that is like the destruction of the old paradigm that's happening.
Yes.
And so there is this kind of rising into this portal, and then that portal is the same one that's on the next card, which is the final of the major arcana. So this is like on the other side of the portal, and the person's light body has fully activated, and their Merkaba's, lit.
It's beautiful.
And then there's a dragon at the top who's like a spirit cosmic dragon who's like, hello, welcome to the new world.
Yes, I love it.
So I mean, that's like a metaphorical and symbolic understanding of what we all are going through, I would say, and how it looks. I'm very eager to see, because there's the questions of like, do we get physical abilities that we don't normally have, right? Like telepathy and channeling are one thing. What about telekinesis or levitation, right? Like, are those things that we can one day attain to? And that's a big question that we've talked about a lot on the show before. But as far as this whole subject goes, you reminded me through pointing out the cards, is that you said at the very beginning you were making an oracle deck.
Yes.
And so if you don't mind the pivot of the conversation, I would love to hear more about that, because as you can probably tell, like, card systems are really fun for me.
Oh, me too. I love them so much. And so it was such a gift. And interesting enough, I was in advertising. I was an art director and graphic designer. And I kind of closed that down because I was like, I'm going to be a writer and a coach. And lo and behold, after my last book, Joy Seeker, came out, which was last fall to March this year, I was feeling like something was missing. And I just started designing these beautiful little collages and these like little images, digital collages really. And they were so full of love because I was putting so much love into them, and they helped me feel better. And lo and behold, it turned into, I pitched it to Sounds True. So thankful. I love them as a publisher, and it's coming out next year, but I got to design all the cards. It's unshakable inner peace, and it's how to awaken and align to your true power. So everything we've talked about today, I could actually give you guys a sneak peek because I have the mock-up deck here, but I'll pull one for us listening. Okay.
Okay.
These are the mock-ups. So they like, these are the, just the color proofs. We're still in production, but okay. So this is special because I'm literally shuffling them right now. And this is for everyone listening. And the card that we need for, I don't know when this is going to go live, when.
Probably in and around the New Year period.
New Year?
Right so before or right after. So we're talking 2021. It's perfect.
Okay. Oh, this is beautiful. So this is the card. So they're digital collages. It's a woman looking both ways, but you see the light and she's inspired by these clouds. But the actual message is your purpose is personal expansion. And so your purpose is personal expansion. How can you be more intentional with your choices and live with more purpose? And so each card has kind of these gold, this one, so very crystal inspired, very nature inspired, and very kind of this digital kind of aspect. Interesting enough, I've done a lot of meditations since the card deck was created, like deep shamanic meditations where you go into these other worlds. And lo and behold, like a lot of the cards, it's so crazy because like these other worlds that come about. So it's like bringing in another dimension into these. So there you go, sneak peek. So it's an oracle card deck with digital collages. I'm very much looking forward to it. Each one has a journal question, and it's all about raising yourself into the next vibration and ascending yourself, but truly being no matter what's going on in the world, you are unshakable inner peace.
Amazing. I love your enthusiasm about it.
Yeah, thank you. You guys are the first ones to see a sneak peek.
Wow. Well, like for anybody who's like listening to more of the audio podcast, you'll have to go onto YouTube and take a look at the card in the replay, because that was really cool. And like I think even just that card specifically, honing in on that card, language is amazing. How, just like even the addition of one word or changing one word can change the meaning of an entire concept, and that like purposeful seemed to be very key, but also expansion, right? Like purpose by itself is just like empty. It's like, okay, there's a direction, but you're not even necessarily moving in that way. And expansion by itself can be like, you can expand into a bunch of things that are not really conducive to you, right? Like it could be vague, or it could be fluffy, or it could be nonsensical, but like purposeful expansion, you put them together, suddenly you have like the results of, let's say, 2021 as an example, because that was our
Yeah.
question. It's like in that span of 12 months, like the difference of where you're starting and where you could end, like where you could
Yes.
end could be so many different places, more or less fulfilled. And it really depends on like if you're connecting with that purpose while you're expanding and growing throughout the year. That's
I
amazing.
love, that's exactly it. Yes, that's exactly it. And so
Mhm.
I think all of us, our purpose is to expand into more of who we really are, but ultimately to, when you get to that place, you want to be of service to others. So it's a lot of people feel like it's selfish to go after your own dreams or find, focus on only you, but it's not that at all. And I think once we start tapping into that, as you see, it becomes such a mission focus on how can I help collectively move the world forward. So that's the purpose and the expansion together. So the question that any of you can journal on is, how can I be more intentional with my choices and live with more purpose? So it's about making each moment more impactful instead of just kind of autopiloting or surviving through our life. We go into thriving mode.
Yeah, it's time for us to thrive. We could use it.
Yes, we can. And I think the more we connect to the things that really make us feel joyful and disconnect from the fear mongering and the control tactics, we will rise into this place.
Hmm.
Because it's interesting, right? People who have really thrived this year in what has been some of the most destructive kind of purpose. Like, a lot of people are in positions where they're losing a lot, but there's also, I've heard spiritual teachers talk about this too. Abraham and Esther Hicks, again, they talk about, there's times when recessions happen and people become millionaires. It's all about kind of that alignment where we
Hmm.
focus our energy to.
Yeah, I mean, even that brings in its own level of discordant thoughts and feelings, right? Because like that's a statistic I've seen going around. Like in 2020, all the billionaires became multi-billionaires, and then everyone else
I
lost their
know, right?
job. And
Yep, I
you
just saw that last night.
and so it's kind of this question of like, all right, so are they just more aligned with their purpose, better than everyone, or like are they really capitalizing on everyone else, right? And it's like the answer is kind of like yes, maybe not the actually maybe not the purpose side of things. It really depends on if they're, yeah, I mean that's between them and spirit. But um it feels to me that like if we can be in a mindset of looking for opportunity and being opportunistic, and often like that comes with its own sense of like, oh, you're a capitalistic shill, like this kind of this negative tone vibe if you're like opportunistic. And I don't mean just in making money, but
Mhm.
if we're looking for opportunities to create change and not be attached to the way that things were, right? If you lost your job, like instead of being upset about it, asking yourself, did I even like doing that? Right? Because that
Yes.
opens this opportunity for something so much better for us, if
Yes.
as long as we're looking. But if we're not looking and we're so attached to the past that no longer is or wasn't working,
Yeah.
that's where you get a lot of these people, this really unfortunate situation of people really struggling. And it's true that that's
Yeah.
happening a lot of.
It's true, and I think the ones that we see who have been able to adapt and grow and change are really the ones leading the way, and that is a skill set that we all really can learn. There is no past in our future. I think that's from A Course in Miracles. I'm not quite sure, but if we keep hanging out in our past, we're just going to stay stuck. And really, all we have is the present moment. But like time is existing all at once. But truly, it is about who do I want to be? Who am I being today? How am I embodying what I stand for? And if we keep aligning for that, then you find that you can create a better future no matter what. And I have seen posts over, especially in the spiritual community recently in this year, interesting enough, that have talked about, they think it's spiritual bypassing, or people who say, focus on what you want is so one-sided because some people are born into poverty, and you're being blindsided as a spiritual teacher talking about that. I don't know if you've seen that, but the whole point is there's been a backlash on that. And to me, I really believe that every single soul on the planet has the opportunity to create change for themselves, no matter what. And yes, a lot of us are born into different situations, and
Mhm.
it's recognizing privilege and all that is one thing, but understanding that we are all spiritual beings, every single one of us on the human planet. And we all have a set of circumstances that has been designed for us and designed by us that we step into to ultimately grow for our soul's greatest journey, really. Then we start to tap into the laws of the universe. And the laws of the universe are really unchangeable. And once you know them, the billionaires know them. They're probably levitating themselves already. They haven't even gotten to the next vibration, right? They also know that control and money might be some way to get more power. That might not work all the time. That crumbles. But my whole point with all this is once you understand that you can make a difference in the world and you have the power to change your circumstances, I think we're really working towards a better world for all. And it does sometimes making your shift is just asking for help. If you've lost a job and you're at home and isolated right now, sometimes it just means, hey neighbor, I need some help, right? So it's all about our own journey and what we need to kind of get over ourselves, right? Get over yourself with the thing you think you need to get to that next level.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And I appreciate, I just like the ability to look at like the whole global situation, whether people are in thriving or in poverty, and just have compassion for the
Yeah.
collective consciousness and stand in service to the whole rising in love is a beautiful state to be in, and one that you don't hear a lot of. And I'd be really curious actually to hear what you think about this. There's a quote that I just love. I think I've mentioned maybe a few times before on this podcast, which is from Caroline Casey. I don't know if you know who she is, but she says that the tragedy of poverty is not the lack of resources that someone is born into. The real tragedy of an impoverished environment is, and poverty in general, is the lack of imagination and education that often accompanies it. Because whether you're in this really poor grungy part of any city, or in Africa or somewhere that like is classified by the Western world as a third world country, like in all of these circumstances, oftentimes it's not like the people can't do anything, but that the education and the support for their imagination and their creativity has not really been nourished to the point that they feel confident, they even know or believe that there's a possibility that they could change their circumstances. And so they live in poverty, and that's all they know. But if they were just introduced to new ideas, like you can change your life and you can change your reality, and here's how powerful you are, that belief alone could empower entire communities, impoverished
Radical
communities,
change.
to create just so much change in their reality if they were willing to embrace it and do something new and different.
That is exactly it. And so it doesn't really matter where you are on the planet. It is a mindset and a focus on, am I committed to being better than before? I have so many friends, even that I went to high school with, who, we're in our, I'm almost 40, and they're still playing the story of what they did when they grew up. And it's, I never showed love, so I'm stuck. I'm never going to make a better paycheck, whatever it may be. So it doesn't matter if you're in America or in Africa. The beautiful thing is, I have some of these friends, and the more we get closer, now that we're friends again, and they see that I have a mindset of kind of life coaching, but not coaching them. But my point is, possibilities is what I'm saying. That's how I see the world. I see the world in possibilities. And so just being around people who have that, I've seen radical changes with some of my friends who have gotten into really healthy relationships or quit addictions. And my point is not about me here saying this, but my point is, it is exactly like that. When you are surrounded by someone who represents some possibility, someone who shows you there's a better way, or hope, or imagining a better way, then the world changes. And so I think with every single one of us, even with 2020, or no matter how down deep the rabbit hole you are with conspiracy theories, or how you are deep into the fear that you may die from coronavirus, I think the point is, can we imagine a better way? And if we start there, then we are well ahead of where we've ever been before. And that's what true ascension is.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautifully said. Oh man. So, in the spirit of like, we still have a few minutes left here, but I want to kind of ask you, as maybe like this kind of big super final, or leading into the finale question. which is like, out of all the I mean, we've talked about so many things, but what is the thing that is the most exciting for you to discuss right now? I mean, you have shown a lot of excitement about, just inner peace and just embodying that. And maybe that's the answer to your question. But is there some area that you're just like, I really want to talk about this?
Oh, I think this has been the most rewarding conversation I've had in my whole life. So
What?
everything we've talked about has been so fulfilling, because I feel like we're meeting each other right where we are. And this is so beautiful because we're just open and honest and with each other. And so the thing that is most exciting about me is literally what I just said about having hope for a better tomorrow. I think it is so hard for us right now. I just walked my dog earlier today. I have a lot of neighbors who are in very, very deep fear. They've isolated themselves. I haven't seen them in months. And there's a lot of fear over us. And so I really believe if we can get ourselves into a place of hope, a place of joy, a place of knowing that I think what's happening, maybe not to so many people listening, but we know people who have this fear of dying has created this massive fear of being alive. The reason I left corporate and the reason that I do everything I do is because I am committed to living this life as fully as possible. And so the moment we stop hiding ourselves from our own life is the moment we transform everything. And so I would invite everyone to live your life in love and light, live your life with joy. That is the reason we're here. Don't worry about the fear that's trying to stop you, because so many of us have stopped living our lives. No, that's the opposite of what we're here to do. So that is my mission. That is my commitment. And I think everything we talked about is an umbrella under that big bullet point.
Wow. I feel like there were so many truth bombs in that were so good. I have to go and I have to re-listen to it after and like write them down, because that was really good. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Well, listen, talking to you has been so much fun today for this podcast. Thank you so much.
I loved it. Yeah, thanks. It's been great being here.
For anybody who wants to just like dive into your work, where can they find you?
My website is playwiththeworld.com. And there's a quiz you can take too if you want to discover more about your true purpose and passion. It's a really beautiful quiz I created. And then on social media, it's Facebook and Instagram, Shannon Kaiser Writes, WRITES. I'm posting content to help you feel alive, to help you connect to your true self and feel purposeful every day. So hope to see you over there.
Yes. Big yes. Everyone make sure you go tune in to Shannon. She's amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a joy. And I want to talk to you after your Rhythmia trip. Let me know how it goes.
Definitely. 110,000%. We have to do a catch up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You.
Well, thank you so much again for coming on. Thank you everyone for listening. And have a good night.
Thank you. Have a great 2021.
2021. It's going to be fabulous.
We got this.
We got this. All right.